Hey, welcome to Spiritual Direction and Soul Care's Sunday Live. Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. I got a little fouled up with the daylight savings time. I started a 3-minute broadcast at 1 o'clock my time. Sorry for the fake out. So glad you're watching either on the broadcast or the replay. Let me know how you're handling daylight savings time. Did you love that extra hour of sleep? I sure did. Apparently it didn't pay off because I still messed up my time. But I'm glad we're here now. Here we are. So we are doing our thing. I am trying a new drink. Jill's back from her sojourn out west as she was learning about uh, health and detoxing body, mind, and spirit. And so she's brought back this really yummy lemon ginger drink that is like homemade and all healthy and good for you. And it's tasty and refreshing. So I'm going to be sipping on that. So we are talking today about the idea of home as we continue our current journey called Holy Humanity, the 10 dimensions of the human soul. We're really talking about 10 different core experiences of spirituality, of human spirituality. Last year, a lot of you guys know I work in the hospital setting. I work in clinical spiritual care as a chaplain. So we use research-based and evidence-based assessment to help support people in their health journeys. And one of the areas that we talk about a lot is spiritual distress. And in my experience sitting at the hospital I used to work at, I used to work with a Irish Catholic priest named Father Joe. And he and I had a lot of really good conversations just about Irish culture. My dad was overwhelmingly Irish in his background. And I just got a lot from Father Joe about the spirituality of Irish culture, the assumptions about human being. And one of the things he said in one of our conversations that really helped me better understand is like, the Irish people have been, oppressed through much of their history, displaced. But Father Joe mentioned how the concept of home, that no matter where you go, no matter where you're taken in life, you always come home. You always end up coming home. Everything comes ultimately full circle to home, whatever that may be for you. So that's what we're going to talk about in a little bit, the idea of home as we go through this third part of exploring our holy humanity, these core experiences. So I'm really excited to dive into this today. But before we do that, we're going to pick back up with one of our most basic spiritual practices. We haven't done this for a couple weeks. So I want to get us back into a grounding practice of just giving ourselves the gift of stillness for just a few moments. We won't go long. We'll kind of ease our way back into it. But I just want us to get back into taking a breath and settling in and kind of preparing ourselves to reflect, to think deeply, to be fully present, which is a way of being home, right? To be fully present with ourselves and with this conversation, and so that you can kind of access that deep wisdom that's in you, right? Each one of us has deep, profound spiritual gifts and wisdom, and I want to hear from you today too, as we make comments and as we talk about home. But before we do that, let's just get into a position that's comfortable, shoulders up, back, down, spine straight, feet on the floor. And let's get ready to just do a grounding exercise. Let's just let our shoulders drop and take a deep breath. And again, a deep breath in and out. It's a bright and beautiful day where I am. Hope the light that is around you, the light outside, reminds you of the light that is within you, the wisdom and the love and the life that we live in, that we're most home at. When we come to a place of stillness, we're coming to a place of home, of rest. We give ourselves the gift of belonging. One more breath in for 3 and out for 5. Let's do that one more time. In for 3, out for 5. All the tension is left. We lay it aside. Last week is over. Don't pick up next week. Don't borrow from tomorrow. Just be here. Come home to yourself with breath. One more. All right. How do you feel? How do you feel? At rest, here, present, ready? We're going to be talking, like I said, about this third dimension, this third experience of our holy humanity. These 10 experiences that we're talking about over these weeks are really the basic experiences of the spiritual life, okay? So we've looked first at the first dimension. We spent a couple weeks of this on the idea of longing, right? This first dimension of longing. It's really the root experience of all human spirituality, that driving sense of our need for meaning, our need for connection, right? With ourselves, with others, with reality, our God concept, all of it, right? This is the root of human spirituality. And then we explored that experience that we have of looking, right? And that's when we act on our longing and we go in search of anything that we think might be the answer to our need for meaning or for connection, really, okay? And so today we're going to explore and just talk initially about the experience of home, okay? Home. And this is home is all about belonging, okay? Belonging. A deep and rooted sense of place that tells us who we are, okay? Home can be a physical location that has deep significance for us, deep significance related to our sense of how we get meaning and connection, or that place where our values were developed, that place that is one of those anchors for our sense of identity, right? But home is also what I would call a psycho-spiritual location. It's a state of being. It's also an outlook too. And probably next week we'll talk a little bit more about like what those dimensions of a home outlook is, okay? I mean, there's this cliche, right, that a lot of us have heard growing up, the cliche that home is where the heart is, right? Home is where the heart is. And that really captures that idea of home as being something that is just as much about our own inward experience and our relationships as it is about any given geographic location. Okay. So that's kind of the initial idea, but like, I'd love to hear for you, and throughout this, just throw these comments in. But here's a question for you. Like, where do you experience your sense of home? Where do you usually experience your sense of home? I mean, whenever I am at my literal house, my literal home with Jill and the girls, that's my sense of home, right? I get a sense of home there. But also when we go up north, we go over to the west side of the state to Ludington, and we hike on the trails at the Ludington State Park. The views, there's a place of peacefulness there. I've been walking those trails my whole life, ever since I was a kid. There's a place of deep connection, right, and rest. It's a place of just being alive, right? It's connected to Hamlin Lake. That's where we've boated for years now, being out on Hamlin Lake with my family. These are locations that also give me a sense of home, right? Whenever I am enjoying a good meal, good food, good drink with good people and good conversation, right? That's a sense of home that provides me with a sense of belonging and connection to being alive to myself and to those that I love the most, right? And being alive to what I take the most joy in, right? That's home. Those are all places that I get a sense of home. How about you? Let me know. Put it in the chat. Susan Henson says, in my actual present home in Springfield, but also when I go to my childhood home in Chicago, right? So it's these formative locations, right? Formative locations. Like, I also think of Chicago as well, growing up in the Chicago area. There are last February, we took the girls for President's Day weekend, and we stayed down near the Chicago River, and we went to lots of different places, just showed them, a fun city, even in the winter, right? And that sense of, and I really feel that sense of home, even in any major city, right? Because I love the aliveness of the city, right? The diversity, the culture, the energy, right? That makes me feel alive, fully myself, right? That's home. Joel says anywhere with you and the girls, also Hamlin Lake for me, right? Like we could be in a freaking cardboard box, but if it's the 5 of us, I'm home. You know what I mean? Although I'm not planning on being in a cardboard box anywhere. So universe, do not accept that assignment. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm just saying, right? So yeah. Where do you experience your sense of home? Keep throwing it in the chat as you think about it. Would love to hear from you. So that's home. But here's some things that are challenging about how we think about home, though. There's always going to be people who believe that the experience of home somehow must mean that you have to leave behind wherever you are right now to go back there, right? To go or to find it or whatever it is, right? So that the sense and longing, right? There's people who think that the sense and longing for the experience of home is going to always be about some usually religious invitation to leap beyond your humanity to some exotic spiritualized reality. Okay. But remember, as I've always say, and you'll hear me say it, you probably heard me say it before, you're going to hear me say it again on other Sunday Lives, the fundamental category mistake we make when we're talking about or thinking about the spiritual life or the spiritual experience or human spirituality is to think that we're talking about something that is different from human life. Okay. Spirituality is not the escape from your humanity. In fact, it's the deeper plunging deeper within to your humanity, understanding the fullness of the depths of your humanity. So going home doesn't mean leaving behind necessarily wherever you are. It's not about escape, right? And this idea, this mistake to think that talking about spirituality means we're talking about something different than humanity, right? Our own humanity. It's a really attractive mistake, right? Because it has power. It plays to our very powerful limitations. It plays to the distrust and fear we have of ourselves. It can play to our resentment of the fact that we're in bodies that have limits, bodies that get sick, bodies that age. Um, and so often in many times religion, when we speak of the word home, when we speak of the experience of belonging, right, we see spirituality, faith, meaning making, whatever you want to call it, we see it then as a flight from reality, as an escape from reality, as an escape from the world, as an escape from our bodies, as an escape from our stories. But the experience of home isn't about trying to become something other than human, because the spiritual journey isn't about a process of becoming something other than what you are. That then makes understanding our holy humanity as something so otherworldly, because when you think of it that way, as an escape, that makes our holy humanity something otherworldly that a lot of us just give up on, right? Like we just give up on being spiritual because we think we have to be really elevated and enlightened and aware, right? Like, so we just kind of give up because it sounds like it's something only for like spiritual masters or saints or gurus or, priests or pastors or whatever, right? But spirituality, hear me in this, spirituality is it's inescapable. It's part of who you are. It is deeply human. It's a part of each one of us, right? There's the mystic poet in the Islamic tradition, Rumi. He was one of those voices that always reminds people that our spirituality is not designed to separate us from our humanity. Let me say that again. Our spirituality is never designed to separate us from our humanity. Instead, our spirituality is the ongoing call to all of us to rediscover our human roots, to come home to ourselves, to see that our holy humanity is our natural self. Our humanity in all its sacredness, in all its limits, the beautiful mess of being a person, right? That's holy. That's our natural self. Spirituality is not designed to separate us from our humanity. In one of Rumi's poems, Rumi says this: "How could the human soul not take flight when from the glorious presence, a soft call flows, sweet as honey, and comes right up to the soul and whispers, 'Rise up now, come away.' How could the fish not jump immediately from dry land into water when the sound of water from the ocean of fresh waves springs to its ear?" See, Rumi gives us this really beautiful image, this sound of that deep voice in our souls, calling us back to our deepest selves, into deeper connection with others and our world. It's like the irresistible sound of the ocean to a fish stranded on dry land. It's like the irresistible sound of the ocean to the human who loves, I love being by the water, just standing on that boundary between land and sea, the strand of the beach, the experience of physically being on the edge of something deeper and greater reminds us of the deeper and greater connections of our lives, the depths of our souls. The ocean is like our soul, So that deep presence with our holy humanity, being present to that's your natural environment. Not a leap beyond your humanity, but presence with yourself. That's your source. Home is wherever we find the nourishing soil for our souls, where we get that sense that we're breathing the air we were meant to breathe. And above all, it's that place where we know we are always welcome. Wherever you're experiencing that's home, right? Because you are experiencing that. So, again, Where do you experience that? Where do you experience home? Where do you experience that kind of nourishment? Where do you feel like you can freely breathe? Who are the people who are your home? Where's the places that you most feel welcome and where you really are welcome? See, to be there, to be in those places with those people, experiencing those things, to be there is then to really be with what we can call God. To be with that kind of God experience is to be home again. Because to be home is to put an end to our sense of estrangement. To be home is to come to a place that takes away alienation, that removes the sense of disconnection that so many of us have come to think is normal, right? Alienation, estrangement, disconnection, hostility even, right? So many of us have come to believe that that's normal existence. And a lot of us came to believe that that was the state of human existence even long before we had the disruption of the last 36 months and all the craziness of the pandemic, really all the craziness since 2015, right? At least here in the USA. Even long before all that, a lot of us have just kind of like come to believe that an unanswered sense of longing with no help, right? Where we're just scraping for what little sense of connection we can get. Right? A lot of us have come to believe that that's just what normal is, you know? But when we enter into places of being seen and truly seeing others, right? When we overcome barriers to connection, when we help people reconcile, when we deepen a sense of belonging, that's the experience of home. And that is really an experience of God. You know, in religion, we talk a lot about God as a person, right? In Christianity, we talk about Jesus showing up as a person, God in the flesh. And that personalized, interpersonal dimension of spirituality, of deep connection to the ultimate, that's important for us as people, right? But we also have to remember that that God is not just a being way far away, right? But God is also an experience, an event of deep connection, which is love, really. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about home next time, you know, because that's really what it all boils down to, right? The overcoming of estrangement and alienation and disconnection. That is the triumph of love. That's what love is. And that's what we're all made for. We'll talk more about that next time. That God is not just a person, God is not just a noun, but God is a verb. God is an event. God is an experience that connects us most deeply with ourselves and our embodied life with others. To wrap up, I want to share with you a prayer that was written by the spiritual teacher John Curvon. John's writing has always been in the background for me, has always been an important uh, voice who reflects on the spiritual journey, and he was a collector of spiritual wisdom and would share it with others, kind of like a resource that would say, hey, remember this, remember that, right? He wasn't necessarily a person who was originating experiences, but he was so deeply well read across the wisdom and the traditions of spirituality that he was like a person who shared wisdom and treasures, right? And so when thinking about the human experience, the spiritual experience, this dimension of our whole humanity, the idea of home, he wrote this prayer, and I hope it will be your prayer too. He prayed, "Home is where my heart is meant to be. Home is wherever my heart is meant to be. So take me home and let my heart speak its truest language, and let my soul rediscover its native land. Amen." So may each of you have the courage to look upon your heart and to look upon where your heart longs for home. And may you have the strength to make that journey and build the house of your soul. And may you find rest and safety in all things. And so it is. Amen. Spiritual direction and soul care. It's so good to spend time together always. Come join our growing community on Facebook. Invite some friends over. We've already hit the 600 person mark. I love that. We're looking at different ways where we can elevate more connections there. So invite your friends to come join us on Sundays at 2 p.m. And next week, we will continue to talk about a little bit more about home. The spiritual experience of home. It's always so good to be together, and I hope you have an amazing week. Let me know how you're doing. Put it in the chat or reach out to me on our Facebook page. Would love to connect with you. Any ways that I can support you on the spiritual journey, I want to do that. And so I'm here for you with that. So let me know how things are going, and otherwise have an amazing